Chapter 28 of Lotus Buds. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Nadu. Lotus Buds by Amy Wilson CARMICHAEL. Chapter 28. Blue Book Evidence. The precipitous sides of difficult questions. EBB. Our first evidence consists of abridged extracts from the census report for 1901. After explaining the different names by which temple women are known in different parts of the Madras Presidency, the report continues. The servants of the gods, who subsist by dancing and music and the practice of the oldest profession in the world, are partly recruited by admissions and even purchases from other classes. The rise of the caste and its euphemistic name seems to date from the 9th and 10th centuries, during which much actively prevailed in South India in the matter of building temples and elaborating the services held in them. The duties now were to fan the idol with Tibetan oxtails, to carry the sacred light, and to sing and dance before the god when he is carried into procession. Inscriptions show that in AD 1004, the great temple of the Chola king at Tanjore had attached to it 400 women to the temple, who lived in free quarters in the 4 streets round it, and were allowed tax-free land out of its endowments. Other temples had similar arrangements. At the present day, they form a regular caste, having its own laws of inheritance, its own customs and rules of etiquette, and its own councils to see that all these are followed, and they hold a position which is perhaps without a parallel in any other country. The daughters of caste, who are brought up to follow the caste profession, are carefully taught dancing and singing, the art of dressing well, and their success in keeping up their clientele is largely due to the contrast which they thus present to the ordinary Hindu housewife, whose ideas are bounded by the day's dinners and babies. Closely allied to this caste is that formed by the temple musicians, who with the temple women are now practically the sole repository of Indian music, the system of which is probably one of the oldest in the world. In certain districts, the report states that a custom obtains among certain castes, under which a family which has no sons must dedicate one of its daughters to temple service. The daughter selected is taken to a temple and married there to a god, the marriage symbol being put on her as in a real marriage. Henceforth she belongs to the god. Writing in 1904, a member of the Indian Civil Service says, "I heard of a case of dedication, 3 girls, at the beginning of this year, but I could not get any evidence. The cases very rarely indeed come up officially, as nearly every Hindu is interested in keeping them dark. We too have had the same difficulty, and that evidence we now submit is doubly valuable because of its source. It is very rarely that we have found it possible to get behind the scenes sufficiently to obtain reliable information from those most concerned in this traffic. The head priest of one of our temples admitted to a friend who was watching for opportunities to get information for us, that the marriage to the god is effected privately by the temple priest at the temple woman's house, with the usual marriage symbol ceremony. To avoid the penal code, which forbids the marriage of children to gods, a nominal bridegroom is sometimes brought for the wedding day to become the normal husband. This caste is recruited by secret adoption. A temple woman's son, now living the ordinary life apart from his clan, explains the very early marriage thus. If not married, they will not be considered worthy of honor. Before the children reach the age of 10, they must be married. They become the property of the temple priests and worshippers who go to the temple to chant the sacred songs. A temple woman told a friend of ours, "The child is dressed like a bride and taken with another girl of the same community dressed like a boy in the garb of a bridegroom. They both go to the temple and worship the idol. The ceremony is common and performed openly in the streets. In a later letter from the same friend, further details are given. The child, who should be about 8 or 9 years old, goes as if to worship the idol in the temple. There the marriage symbol is hidden in a garland, and the garland is put over the idol, after which it is taken to the child's home and put round her neck. After this, she is considered married to the god. A young temple woman in a town near Dohnavur told us that she had been given to the temple when she was 5 years old. Her home was in the north country, but she did not remember it. She had, of course, understood nothing of the meaning of the ceremony of marriage. She only remembered the pretty flowers and general rejoicing and pleasure. Afterwards, when she began to understand, she was not happy, but she gradually got accustomed to it. Her adopted relations were all the friends she had. She was fond of them, and they of her. Her husband was one of the temple priests. A Hindu woman known to us left home with her little daughter and wandered about as an ascetic. She went to a famous temple, where it is the custom for such as desire to become ascetics to enter the life by conforming to certain ceremonies ordained by the priests. She shaved her head, took off her jewels, wore a savet necklet of berries, and was known as a devotee. She had little knowledge of the life before she entered it, and only gradually became aware of the character borne by most of her fellow devotees. When she knew, she fled from them and returned to her own village and the secular life, finding it better than the religious. In telling us about it, she said, "I expected whiteness. I found blackness." She told us that she constantly came into contact with temple women, none of whom had chosen the life as she and her fellow ascetics had chosen theirs. Always the one who is to dance before the gods is given to the life when she is very young. Otherwise she could not be properly trained. Many babies are brought by their parents and given to temple women for the sake of merit. It is very meritorious to give a child to the gods. Often the parents are poor but of good caste. Always suitable compensation and a joy gift is given by the temple women to the parents. It is an understood custom and ensures that the child is a gift, not a loan. The amount depends upon the age and beauty of the child. If the child is old enough to miss her mother, she is very carefully watched until she has forgotten her. Sometimes she is shut up in the back part of the house and punished if she runs out into the street. The punishment is severe enough to frighten the child. Sometimes it is a branding with a hot iron upon a place which does not show, as under the arm, sometimes nipping with the nail till the skin breaks, sometimes a whipping. After the child is reconciled to her new life, occasionally her people are allowed to come if they wish, and in special circumstances she pays a visit to her old home. But this is rare. If she has been adopted as an infant, she knows nothing of her own relations, but thinks of her adopted mother as her own mother. As soon as she can understand, she is taught all evil and trained to think it is good. As to her education, the movements of the dance are taught very early, and the flexible little limbs are rendered more flexible by a system of massage. In all ways the natural grace of the child is cultivated and developed, but always along lines which lead far away from the freedom and innocence of childhood. As it is important she should learn a great deal of poetry, she is taught to read, and with this object in view she is sometimes sent to the mission school, if there is one near her home. The poetry is almost entirely of debased character, and so most insidiously, by story and allusion, the child's mind is familiarized with sin. And before she knows how to refuse the evil and choose the good, the instinct, which would have been her guide, is tampered, with and prevented till the poor little mind, thus bewildered and deceived, is incapable of choice. End of chapter 28.